and a good friend, Joe DeForest. Joe, how are you?
Hey, Robert, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's good to connect. By the way, I tried those Boudin balls
Yeah, how were they?
last night. They're not as good as yours. Not even
No.
close. No,
Well, those boudin
no.
balls are good, though. I miss it.
Yeah, and I miss seeing you and your family, and that extends to the baseball diamond at Oklahoma State because your son-in-law is a former terrific Cowboy baseball player. Your daughter, a former student and alumni at Oklahoma State. How is the DeForest clan doing during this?
We're doing good. We're doing as well as expected. I miss my daughter. They Corey and Ashley moved out to L.A. and got jobs out there, and they lived a block away from us in Redondo Beach. And when I had this opportunity come up, I wanted to come back and coach secondary again, and they were fine with it. Of course, they missed us. We talk every single day on the phone for about 30 minutes, and hopefully they'll once their lease is up, they'll move out to North Carolina with us.
Well, and for folks who don't know, Joe is coaching safeties at North Carolina State, part of the Wolfpack staff out there, and that's been a program that's done really well lately, and got a head coach, Dave Durison, that's really an outstanding head coach. Um, Talk about the well. First of all, let me get back to L.A. and your daughter. That's one of those hot spots. What do they tell you about? And I know you know LA well, having been out there
Right.
the last couple of years and coaching at USC. What do they tell you about what's going on there?
Well, they've shut down the beaches, and that was really the last straw when they self quarantined everybody and said everybody's off the streets. Some of the people would still go jog on the strand on the beach and stuff. They've totally shut that down now. So it's only place you can go is to grocery store, and you can go get something to eat, takeout. That's it. So they're locked up.
Well, and I was going to ask you. You and Laura got out of LA and now in Raleigh. What's it like in Raleigh?
It's pretty quiet. I mean, we walk for about an hour and a half every day, just and you see a lot of people walking, but there's hardly any cars out. And we've been very, very fortunate here in North Carolina. We've had zero deaths, which is one of the few states with a lot of cases that do not have a casualty. So we're very fortunate there, and it's great to be back here. We used to work at Duke from '94 to 2000, and we ended up buying a house a mile from where we used to live. So it's very familiar territory to us.
Yeah, for folks who haven't been there and understood it, it's an incredible situation there with UNC, NC State, Duke, even Wake isn't that far, right?
Right, Wake's only about 60 miles, but like Duke, like I lived in Cary when I worked at Duke and drove 15, 20 minutes to work. Right now, I live 5 minutes from work to NC State, and then North Carolina's about 10 minutes. So it's
Yeah.
they call it Research Triangle Park, but the schools and the incredible universities around here, and it's a great place to live and work and be a part of.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful part of the country. We were actually, Lynn and I were heading. I don't think it's going to happen. We were heading that way for the uh, Memorial Day weekend because we have a nephew that's getting married. There in North Carolina. So I don't know if any of that's going to happen now. But
Yeah.
talk about the reason for making the move. You said you wanted to get back to coaching. You were coaching linebackers at SC.
Yeah, I
You
was
get
coaching
back to
outside
coaching in the
linebacker.
secondary.
Well, it's been my love. I've coached secondary my whole career, except when I was at Duke. I coached the outside linebackers, and I just miss that part of the action. I miss teaching, what I know, and it's nice. I don't do special teams anymore. I help out, and I can concentrate on the back end, and it's really neat because Tony Gibson is our defense coordinator. Him and I work together at West
West
Virginia,
Virginia. Yeah.
and our corner coach Brian Mitchell and I also work together at West Virginia. So three of us came together when this thing happened and said let's put the gang all back together again. And very fortunate to work with people that and like and care about, and we're very, very fortunate. And we got some good kids.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't know how much crossover tape you get to see from the Big 12 now, but Iowa State really was the instigator with a lot of three-man front, and it's a lot of the concepts that Tony used at West Virginia that have
Yeah,
become kind of the hot defense. I think it's just about everybody's using it in the Big 12 to some degree.
correct. And really, Tony Gibbs is the one who brought it to the Big 12 because obviously under Rich Rod, that's what they ran. And when we got into the Big 12 and Tony became our defense coordinator, that's what we went with. And then Iowa State was the second team to go to the 3-3 stack and has been very successful doing it. And then, we saw some of it in the Pac-12 last couple of years. I think it's a piece of everybody's defense now. It's just about how much you want to use it.
Yeah, and that just reminded me. You used to coach at Duke, and you were at Oklahoma State for so long. I mean, long enough for your daughter to go all the way through school, which you thought was one of the your great accomplishments as a dad was staying in the same spot and letting her go through not only public school but then her college degree as well for the most
Right.
part. But have you ever? Jim Knowles is the defensive coordinator here now. He was at Duke,
Right.
obviously much more recently than you were. What have you ever crossed paths or crossed paths with people who knew Jim Knowles?
No, I really haven't. I have not. I know. I think Kurt Roper, who's our running back coach here, he knows him because his brother works at Duke. It's crazy. There's a lot of ties between this and North Carolina State, and Duke. Two guys who I worked with at West Virginia. Well, one of them is Robert Gillespie. He's a running back coach at
Yes.
North Carolina, and then Lonnie Galloway is the receiver coach at North Carolina. So all of us are. We went to a North Carolina Coaches Association clinic a few 2-3 months ago, and there was 4 or 5 of us on the staff at West Virginia that were sitting there in that room, and all working here. It's crazy.
Not. I was going to say not only that, a guy you coached against many times at Texas, Mac Brown's holding court there as the head coach for
No
UNC.
doubt. There's no question. We had a nice visit, and he's. I wish Mac the best. I mean, I think he's going to do a great job. Obviously, they're a rival of ours, but I like Mac, and I always have, and we've had a lot of respect for each other throughout the years.
When you look back on it, and of course for me, it's very vivid because I do know that your special teams playbook is still used a lot of places, including NEO, where that's how they run their special teams. It's right off the Joe DeForest book. Uh, but when you look back on your time at Oklahoma State, what are some of the great memories that for you that stand out?
Oh God, there's so many. Robert, you're talking about almost 12 years, but I know the very first one was Les Miles' first year when we beat OU in Norman uh, and held them to 0 yards rushing. That was one of the greatest uh, single memories of being there because my dad was on the sideline. And I never heard him cuss before, and he said that was the greatest effing game I've ever seen. So it was awesome. It was awesome. Uh, obviously, winning the Big 12 and going to the Fiesta Bowl, but coaching Martell Van Zandt, coaching Darren Williams, Markel Martin, those guys. There's so many kids that I either coached or recruited that I still stay in contact with, including your son. But I mean, I miss the people. Todd and Felix Graybill, our best friends.
Yeah.
I miss Stillwater, but I would say game wise, the Iowa State game that we lost, the Big 12 championship that we won, and then beating OU in OU in 2000.
I'll tell you one selfishly that I remember vividly, and that was Mike's second year as head coach and the bowl game against Alabama. And I understand Alabama was in disarray,
Right.
It was right before Nick Saban was going to take over, but I don't care. You beat Alabama anytime, and that's special. And then it was a field goal that Rick's hit. I mean,
Right.
and two kids that I watched grow up, my own and Cole Reynolds was the holder. And then I
Right.
remember, this is a vivid memory. I remember you sending a manager down there, and I think I even saw you. You looked at him face to face and said, "Make sure you get that ball." And so then in the locker room, afterwards, Mike does his deal, and he asked Boone Pickens to say something because Boone Pickens was in the locker room, and then Mike said, "Anybody else here, coaches? Anybody got anything?" And you said, "Yeah, coach, I've got something." You held up that football and said, "This is the first Mike Gundy bowl win game ball," and you pitched it at Mike, and I mean almost in one motion. He pitched
Right.
it over to Boone Pickens, and I'm thinking in my mind, and I still to this day, and of course Mr. Pickens is passed, and I'm thinking, if I were Mike, I would get a written guarantee that when Boone Pickens passes, that ball gets gets back in my office or gets back to
Right.
me. I don't know, but I do remember you made sure that ball was secured, and you were the guy that made the presentation, and Mike, rightfully so, with all Boone Pickens had done, gave the ball to Boone Pickens. But I don't know why that just pops out in my head, and it's so vivid, but I remember it.
Yeah, I do remember that too. Yeah, one of the other memories, it's a sad memory, but when after uh, uh, God, hold on, Vernon uh,
Vernon,
passed
Vernon
away,
Grant, yeah,
and when Vernon passed away, the very first game, because Vernon was the geek guy on the kickoff team, he'd get the whole crowd jacked up.
yep,
If you remember, I sent uh, his roommate out onto the field, and then right before we kicked off, I had him jog off the field, so we only played with 10 guys on the field on that kickoff in memory of Vernon. Daniel McLemore.
I remember that. I remember that. Hey, and here's something else I wanted to bring up. You say you're not coaching special teams, that you help out. Here's the thing and I understand. And I did you see the kickoff stuff they were doing in the XFL?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
I thought it was pretty cool too. And when I watched it, it gave the return guy a chance. I thought it was a fair setup, and it
I did,
certainly,
I did
because of
too.
the distance, it minimized those long running high impact injuries between the cover squad and the blockers on the return unit. But here's what I long for, and we had a lot of those. When you had a lot of good return guys, you had a lot of good schemes for returns. But I'd love to see the kickoff return. Um, I'd love to see it come back to college football, but um, we just haven't seen it in years.
Right. You know what? I equate the kickoff return to in the XFL. It's like an outside zone play or an inside zone play,
Hmm.
because everybody's engaged in a gap, and it's just the first guy that gets out of his gap. That's where it's going to spring if it springs.
Well, in the few games I watched, I'm like, you know what? That actually gives both sides a decent chance if they execute, and it also does what the rule makers and the higher ups want, and that's minimize the long running collision injuries and the result of those collisions, the injuries that they want out of the game. So, well, yeah. Anything else? I mean, what's up? Anything?
Well, we're just trying to, you know, social distance the best we can, and it's a sad state for everybody in the country, everybody in the world, obviously, and there's no answer to the problem. We just got to do what's right and protect each other, and you know, I think sports is such an important part of our country that we're going to find a way to get back on the field and unite the country. I really believe that because we need it. We need it for sure.
Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on, and again, it's always good to talk to you. Give the best to Laura and to your kids, your daughter and son-in-law, and I hope they get out there to join you. There pretty soon. Um, but it's always good to talk to you, Joe.
Thanks, Robert, for having me, and you go give all those people the go post. I'm always a post for life.
I know that. Hey, Joe, I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right, Joe DeForest. Now the